Welcome in to Coffee and Chel for Thursday, December 4th. Hope everyone had a great evening. It is full-fledged winter here in Southern Ontario. Woke up, it was freezing. It's that constant gray outside. Doesn't get light out until like 7:30 in the morning, maybe even 8. And we're just in the midst of another great Canadian winter. But I hope you guys are doing well. We've got a jam-packed show today. We're going to touch on some of the content yesterday that was released. We're going to talk Olympics and potentially the NHL actually not sending its players. Going to do a little update on yesterday. I went and spent an entire day selling my old games and kind of want to touch on that and something that I'm going to focus on for the Sanctuary. And then I want to get into some more gaming stuff industry-wide, specifically on talking about cloud computing. Did a little deep dive on that last night and this morning, and just wanted to touch on some things. And but yeah, let's get into it. Yesterday, we got our second Star of the Month release. And man, if that isn't a microcosm for the new era of HUT, I don't know what is. So for anyone that didn't get a chance to look, we got a new Star of the Month card, and it was the 89 overall Jason Robertson. No problem with that. Jason Robertson has been unbelievable, former Niagara Ice Dog. And you could argue and quibble about McKinnon and all of that, but okay, they went Jason Robertson. I'm never gonna complain about that stuff and the player choices. I think that it should be more streamlined, and there should be a NHL tie-in, like whoever gets Star of the Month. But then I think it's probably gonna be like roughly the same three players, so maybe that's why they want to do it. Regardless, the issue I have with it is it's continuing this growing trend of cards that come out that are more expensive yet worse. And I don't know if this is intentional in a sense of like, hey, they already got a good one. Let's make this slightly higher overall one, but not actually better in terms of like the play. I think this leads into an issue where there are so many attributes in NHL, right? Like actual individual attributes, and a majority of them don't matter to the player. They don't. When we look at a card, or when I'm doing a review of cards for you guys to kind of go through, which ones are going to be impactful for you or not, here is how it goes. Their speed, excel, and agility are the three most important. That has been the case since NHL 2000. Like, and that's fine. Faster is better. We don't need to beat a dead horse. And you can claim that it's not. If you were to design a perfect card, he would have 99 speed. That's it. Like that is it. That is, if you had to pick one stat to go to 99, you would pick that. And I know I'm going to get someone in the comments that's like, well, I actually prefer if the balance was 99 because I like to puck protect and cycle and hold people off. Like, sure, Steve, that's awesome for you. But for 99% of the online player base, speed is the most important. And when I say online, I want to be very clear that if you were an offline player, the benefit of being an offline player is you don't have to just use the meta cards, because the CPU is more easily manipulated. I guess when it comes to playing someone who's online, that there are specific attributes that you're going to need advantage. So when I look at cards, here's how it goes. For a forward, it's their speed, excel, and agility. Okay, those are the three most important stats to me. That isn't the only important stats. I want to be very clear here. That's not the only important stats, but that's where I look. For a forward, the next is wrist shot power and accuracy, not slap shot. Unfortunately, slap shots, the days of just coming down the rush and hauling off, getting both cheeks into one, unless you have rocket, they just don't go in. Sure, every once in a while, but if you're trying to pick a corner with a slap shot in this game before 99 shot, you run the risk of just lightening up off the glass, rimming it all the way out, and a rush the other way, which is from covering the OHL for like 2 years. God, the amount of kids that will come down the ice in junior, and I'm going to talk about NHL players. I'm talking about like NHL drafted players. I'm talking about OHLers, great hockey players, but they're just trying to lay as much into one as they can, and it just ends up going around the boards and out the other way. I don't know if it just in junior it happens all the time. Anyways, so wrist shot accuracy and power would be the next thing for a forward. And then for centers, face off would be more important than wrist shot, power, and accuracy, but that's where it goes. After that, it's going to be height and weight. That's what I look at next, because that dictates how easy they are to get knocked off the puck, or how easy they have an advantage over knocking someone else off the puck, as well as their general reach. Again, if you were building a perfect player, the reason why gigantic ogre-like defensemen or forwards are so vastly superior is because it's harder to knock them off the puck when you're holding on to it, and also just the reach. So if you have someone like Chara, and you have two just trees on the back end, and you're in position and you're defending a rush, when you go to poke check or just the having to get around them, they cover half the ice themselves, right? And that's a major advantage over a player that is smaller. The length of their stick matters, right? Because their area of impact is less. So height and weight would be the next thing for a forward. And then there's little things. So the deking attribute, very important, and I feel like it's overlooked. The deking attribute alone dictates how fast you will pull off a deke. So if you were to take someone with 75 deking and you try to do just an L1 deke, you know, the one where it's like the little slip deke, right? It'll be very slow, and it will be, it'll have a high chance of not successfully completing. I think once you get to like 80, every deke will complete, but the speed at which is crazy slow. So if you get to like 99 deking, your ability to just not just do like the L1 dekes, but stick handle. So when you go left and right a ton, the faster your deking attribute, the faster you can do that. It is a very important stat that a lot of people don't pay attention to. It's why I pointed out when I'm going over the cards, right? And I guess this is I could do a longer video on attributes, and it's been a while since I've done one, so maybe I do that. On defense, it's defensive awareness. Defensive awareness dictates how your player's ability to intercept passes. Okay, so if you have someone with very low defensive awareness, you can basically just huck a pass, and unless the stars align and the moon is in the proper orbit and you're under the appropriate astrological sign, your players are not intercepting that pass. And for the most part, even if they have 99 defensive awareness, a cross-ice pass right through the middle isn't getting intercepted anyways. But yeah, so when they release cards, they know what the most important attributes to the player base is. And again, a lot of the player base don't really care about attributes. They just look at the card, right? They just want an overall, right? A lot of the players, the non-hardcores, the guys that you guys that are not watching YouTube and Twitch and things like that and playing online competitively, a lot of them will just look at, oh, this is an 89 Jason Robertson. It's better than my 87. Just because higher number, better card. We know all things aren't created equal. Same thing with abilities. Abilities are drastically important. If a player has quick release and someone has ankle breaker, quick release is going to make up for like 4 attribute points in a lot of things, including skating, just because of how impactful that ability is, right? So, anyways, Jason Robertson comes out, and my God, it is just a worse card than his 87. There's no way around it. Again, online play and whatever. And it is just a microcosm of the new era of HUT. More expensive, less impactful. And I don't know if I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, okay? I don't want to just be a conspiracy theorist that, like, they sit in a boardroom. I'm talking about the content team, not the yacht owners, okay? The content team go around, how can we just milk them dry? Because I don't think that's the thing. I think that the content team generally wants to make cards do well, and then obviously their job performance is based on if they can make money or not. So they're, but I do think that maybe they want to give a different feel for the card. Okay, so that's why they changed some of the attributes. Like, so Jason Robertson's card has higher hand stats and higher shooting, less skating. However, the vast majority of comments on Reddit everywhere, it doesn't take a genius to know that skating is most important. And unless you are going to make up for skating with a drastic increase in ability. So if the fact that Star of the Month player items, if a card costs a month's worth of content. Okay. I'm not talking about event items. That's a week's worth of content. They release a week. If you were to do everything they release in a week, you can get a master set player item. If you were to do everything that they release for Star of the Month, you have to save up for a month. That is a month-long content. Much like icons, heroes, all of that stuff. That is a month-long content, I would say. It would take you about a month of all the rewards, saving everything if you were to just make the card. Getting all of the alumni and all of that stuff. It'd take you about a month. How do they not have an elite ability? Okay. That would justify the cost. But this Jason Robertson card, it is so similar to the far cheaper Team of the Week card. And I'm not talking about cheaper to acquire now. I'm talking about cheaper to acquire 3 weeks ago, right? And this is just continuing a trend of higher cost, less reward. And I'm not talking just about monetarily. I'm talking about resources. So just because the argument could be you don't have to pay money for the card, you use your resources that you've acquired for free. And by free, I mean time is money. But I hate that argument because if you don't enjoy acquiring the cards to then if you don't enjoy doing the chores, I hate calling them chores, but that's the meme. If you don't enjoy doing the chores, okay, which none of us really do, right? But if that does not offset the joy of getting the end result, which would have been the Team of the Week, Star of the Month, whatever, that's an issue where you need to look for other games or other ways to play Hockey Ultimate Team. Whether that's a pure theme team, whether that's selling everything, you know what I mean? Like that really is kind of where you need to have some self-reflection, because if the card you're acquiring doesn't move the needle and get you excited to put that card in your lineup, and you're spending a lot of your time doing all of the chores where you really don't want to, then you guys got to realize that's full on time wasted. Like, your time is important. Understand that, right? Which is why, as someone who is not just from a job standpoint, this is my job, but from I'm a game, like, I love playing Hockey Ultimate Team. I like playing the NHL video game. I do enjoy that. Like, to say, you know what I mean? I know that I complain a lot about things, but I'm mostly just, I mean, inherently, you're always going to focus on the negative thing if you play something so much, right? But I do enjoy playing the video game, because if I didn't, then I would find another job, fellas. Like, I would, if I didn't enjoy playing it quite a bit, right? And so if you're not enjoying it, and you're the example I wanted to make was Nico Hischier. So I do this for a living, and it used to be my job to get the best cards, to try them out, to give you guys, my thoughts on them. And I try to do that as much as possible, especially with Master Set event player items, things like that. But now I rely on a lot of feedback from you guys, whether it's in my Discord, comments, Reddit, everywhere. Like, I am looking, when I give my advice or opinion on Master Set player items, I'm a no money spent player. I can't try out every single card, right? That the game does not allow for such things, right? If you don't spend money. So what I do is I go and reach out to the people that have tried them out. And then I have a few people that I listen to that I respect their opinion when it comes to competitive play. And then I make an informed decision on, like, hey, you guys would want to try this out. You won't regret this kind of thing, right? Nico Hischier is a perfect example. That card was amazing, but I didn't feel like grinding and utilizing my time to get all of the chores done to make Nico Hischier, because I don't like the New Jersey Devils. I'm not particularly a big Nico Hischier fan, and I'm finally getting to a point where I don't feel the need where I need to have the shiniest new toy. I can just simply wait for a card that I like more. Line combos, guys, make it so that you don't need to have that best card. You don't. There are ways to make lesser cards more useful in that sense, right? Nico Hischier is one of the best cards in the game. One of the best cards in the game. However, I'm okay with not having that. And I just wanted to point this out. Like, it seems like they're either doing full-on QA testing again, like last year, where they were testing the XP path and things like that, and what sets were done and all of that, like a good company should. Like, you should be taking data and seeing what your consumer is doing. That is doing their due diligence, right? But God, stop it. No one's using Ankle Breaker. God, I said this before. One of the biggest flaws of them utilizing data based on how many players are using cards that have certain abilities. I know that, like I told you guys, how they used to determine what the cost was for X Factor abilities in NHL 22, 23, and for the beginning part of 24 was they would see what abilities are being used by the player base, what percentage, right? And then they would be like, okay, these are the most expensive because everyone wants to use them. That's how they balance it. And actually, that's a pretty good system. I'll be honest with you. It was. And now, and then they made everything cost the exact same, right? Which has its issues, but they buffed all of the old abilities. Like they made every ability has like its usefulness. It's just some are going to be used every single shift, and some are very nuanced, right? Big tipper, for example, and you know that's something like along those lines. So again, maybe they're just testing how far they can go in terms of like, all right, this card isn't that much better. Will people still buy it or buy packs to get the stuff required? Like, is it moving the needle? I don't know. But you know, like I said, I'm no longer upset about this. I'm indifferent. It is just the future we have to accept by playing Ultimate Team games. NHL is behind innovation and tech and development from every other sports game. And that should be expected when you consider that it is the fourth most popular sport in North America. FIFA is global, right? And the NHL, in terms of popularity, is so small. So if you were running a company, EA Sports, you would dedicate a lot of resources or a lot less. It just makes sense, right? But it sucks for us because it's our main game and we just want what everyone else has, right? And the other major problem is that it costs the same, which argument for a different day. But that being said, you know, I wish, I don't know. The NHL video game is now catching up to the the crazy stranglehold on monetizing everything in the game. And I think we took a lot for granted because if you look at FIFA, Madden, 2K, even MLB The Show, you have to spend a ton. Everything is perfectly monetized because they have far more resources in terms of like research and all of that. And the NHL video game is now catching up. And it's just unfortunate, is what it is. And there's better ways to do it. The consumer suffers more than anyone else when it comes to this. But boycotting it or causing a big stink is not going to reverse anything. So what I can do as a creator, and remember, guys, it is my career. So people that are like, I saw a comment the other day, like, how do you still promote this game? One, I still enjoy the video game and I'm still going to play it. I'm going to give my critical opinion, but I'm also going to explain when I like things that they are doing. There is a lot of good that I was surprised about this year, right? When it comes to microtransactions and how I play the game, I have just now evolved and understood that that isn't for me. So now I have to reset my expectations of how I'm going to play and what I'm going to invest my time and resources in and what I'm going to inform you guys to do, right? I don't show packs on stream for the most part or in my videos because I don't like pack opening videos. I think that it really, for a lot of players, kind of preys on, you know, people that want to gamble. I think that it does. And because it stimulates the same part of the brain as the roulette table. But I'm still going to play the game, and it would be hypocritical for me to say, don't play this, I'm done, or don't play this, they're scamming you and all of this. When instead, because I'm going to still play the game. You know, nothing irritates me more than someone that just states they hate something, but then you go and look and they have 4,000 hours on that thing still. Like my brother, that's a you problem, right? Like it is. It's addiction, and it's if you hate something and you're still doing it, even if you're not spending money, guys, like I said, engagement is still just as important as monetization to them. As long as you're in the game, you are still getting, they are still getting data out of you. They're still, you know what I mean? They're still getting something, right? So, you know, and that's again, probably a topic in a whole other bigger conversation. But like I said, I think that I'm just going to continue pointing out how to play the game without spending money. and how you can better utilize your time. At the end of the day, guys, my channel and what I do in terms of recommendations and info in general, here's the lens that I go through. Someone gets home from work, they've hung out with their kids or their wife, or they just got back from a long travel away at work, okay? And you come home and you've got 2 hours to play the NHL video game. The NHL video game does a horrible job explaining what you should be doing, the path in which you should. The NHL video game and the content team for years, not just this current content team, but old content team, relied on people that have been playing the game for a decade to just understand how it works. And which is why people like me and other creators that have been out there just being like, this is how it works, these are the things you should chase after, why we've been able to find a footing and a viewership base. So I'm going to continue putting out info that will help you guys limit the amount of time wasted so you can get into playing the game. And I will do it with the lens of don't spend money. Or if, with the lens of like, here's what to do if you don't want to spend money. If you want to spend money, again, I don't blame you. I spend money on the Pokemon Pocket game. I invest a lot of money into old Pokemon games. I'll get into that a little bit later on in the episode after yesterday. So I don't judge anyone because, like, I guarantee you there's a lot of 35-year-olds that think that me buying old Pokemon games for hundreds of dollars is an absolute joke and lame. Totally understand it. I also don't drink really anymore. And, I'm about spending whatever extra money I get on things that I enjoy, right? And if NHL is it, spend your money, right? Do it if you have the means, though. All right, so that was a long-winded rant that kind of went into Star of the Month, but Star of the Month is something that can be avoided until we get a banger card. Like, the thing I don't understand from a monetization standpoint, okay? Let's pretend to be EA. I don't understand why they wouldn't make Jason Robertson have Elite Quick Release, his Star of the Month card. Because even if he's slightly slower, like I mentioned, if he has one of the best abilities in the game, or maybe a couple, that makes up for lesser attributes if they wanted to go that route. I just don't get it. If the cost is a month of resources, then the card has to be substantial, right? And that would be one way to just fix it. You know what I mean? Like, these are things that I'm confused at because I think people would spend more money if the card is better, right? Like, but anyways, we also got the final Kane moment, and I saw a lot of complaints about it. Remember, you're getting a free 88 overall card, and I guess, I guess we should thank our lucky stars because, even the Kane moments showed another microcosm of the new era of HUT where they even tried to suck the monetization out of, or the free aspect of Evander Kane and tried to turn that into another vehicle for monetization. We got the final moment. You have 2 days or a little over a day now to complete that final one, and it was 5 points, and it's pretty tough. However, I will say it's not one-timers. It's not assists, which is more difficult. It is points. If you struggle, you need to get good at the backhand wrap. And I don't mean it's not a quick wrap or anything like that. With Patrick Kane, he's a left-handed player, so you come to the right-hand side, and you wait for the defenseman to start coming towards behind the goal line. Hold the backhand, skate around outside in front of the crease, and fire backhand far side. Do this over and over again, and I guarantee you will get the 5 goals. Maybe I can put together a little YouTube short for you. I don't like showing like cheesy goals because a lot of people that watch my YouTube shorts on TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff, they think that that's how you would score online. That goal does work online, but it is so easily defended that like I maybe score it once every 20 games. So it's more of an offline cheese, and so do with that what you will. But yeah, even the Kane moments, like even Patrick Kane, 2 years ago or a year ago, was the Titan moments only a year ago? Or have we gotten 2 years? Was the Panarin was last year, was it not? Or was it 24? My brain is mush. Anyways, that was all 9 moments. They were very difficult, but we had a week to do all 9. Now, if you guys don't see why they did the Patrick Kane moments the way they did them, then you're not paying attention. Again, the slow drip means that Patrick Kane comes out. Number 1, there is a small section of the player base that sees the newest cards that's a high overall that is deemed a pretty good card, and they want it immediately. By God, the cost doesn't matter. Those are the whales, the people that have exponential amount of money in real life, and they utilize that to make up for time, okay? Or they're just hut rich because They work the market. That's how they do it, and they have an abundance of resources. So by doing it this way, new Patrick Kane comes out. There's no way to acquire him for free. Okay, immediately they're going to make a ton more money than they did in the prior release because you can't earn him immediately or even make him cheaper, right? And then the slow drip means that as you get further in, again, that craving of FOMO of like, oh man, all these people have Patrick. And the amount of Patrick Kane cards I saw online a couple days in for people that think that no one bought those packs or did that, you're sorely mistaken. And again, just another monetization tactic to get people to spend more money. You didn't have to. I want to make that very clear. You didn't have to, but it is another avenue of that, just like the jerseys that we talked about yesterday, right? So the other thing, if you're struggling with the Patrick Kane moments, stop cycling. If you fail on your attempt at scoring and you're in the offensive zone and nothing's there, leave the zone. Leave the zone and try scoring again off the rush. That's what you need to do. Because on Superstar or higher difficulties, once you're in the zone, it's very hard to get space. And because the AI can actually poke check and hit, it's like almost not worth your time. Okay, let's talk about some little NHL news. My God, the Sharks got a reminder last night that they are still a ways away. And they got blasted by the Washington Capitals last night, 7-0. Ovechkin blows my mind because he had an unbelievable game. But the crazier part is I was watching and there was some struggles, or it was noted that he was having a slow start. This guy is not in hockey shape. He's just not. And he never really has, like, he's in good shape for an athlete, I guess, for the most part, but not compared to other, like, you know, NHLers and stuff like that. That being said, he's still a very strong guy, but he has like 16 points in his last 11 games. He is a point per game player 28 games into the season. That blows my mind more than the fact that he's still scoring goals. Like that, it's crazy to me. I think that is just overlooked because of the goal record. The fact that he is still able to do that, he doesn't move, guys. Again, I don't watch a lot of Capitals much recently just because I don't have time, but I got to see him against the Sharks, and it was just crazy to me. Also, the Anaheim Ducks, unbelievable start to the season. They look like they're taking a step. Got smoked by Utah 7-0. Just a little reminder that everyone kind of gets wrapped up in the new hotness. Just remember that they're not established. Not everyone's the Colorado Avalanche or the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Florida Panthers, aside from this season, just yet, or the Hurricanes. Like, they got to still put in their due diligence. And I think it was kind of a big learning lesson last night for those two teams. But in other news, went down the rabbit hole. I was listening to Kipper and Bourne, and Pete DeBoer was on, and he was talking about the Olympic ice in Milan. Is it Milan? Yeah, Milan. So the arena is just there's real jeopardy that the NHL players are not going. They might not go. As it stands right now, they are, and I would say it's like an 80% chance they go. But the Olympic arena, I guess, is not completed yet. It's supposed to be completed in January, which is crazy short time frame, right? But it's also 3 feet shorter than NHL ice. How does that happen? How do you have an architect? Because building an arena, guys, requires, I guess, in a short period of time. But nonetheless, the architect has to go through a crazy scientific process of designing the whole thing. They don't just like, all right, here are the studs and we'll figure it out as we go along. How do you not realize that this ice surface is 3 feet shorter than the real, like, that blew me away. I can understand construction and having a hard time getting everything up, right? But just the whole thing is to watch the ice, the product on the ice. How do you be like, oops, measured wrong? Anyways, so if they do go, they're playing on a smaller ice surface than the NHL, which is crazy because obviously Olympic ice is far wider than NHL ice. So, I think that helps out like Team USA, the heavier teams. Again, you're not going to see major hitting. You're not going to see fighting. That's not in IOC rules. But you're going to see the ability to hold on to the puck. I was thinking about, I tweeted out, Will Smith had a 3-point night the other night and some of the craziest goals. And I tweeted out, how long until Will Smith gets a look for like the taxi squad for Team USA? Right, he's eighth. He's tied for eighth in scoring among USA born skaters. And I was thinking, like, on Olympic ice, I feel like having Macklin, Bedard, those guys that have the ability, they're smaller, but they have the ability to just create tons of space for themselves. And with so much open room, it makes them so dangerous, right? But now that it's a little bit smaller and more confined, might be a bit tougher. So Will Smith, so Macklin and Bedard are making Team Canada. There's no way to leave them off. They're already two of the best Canadians in hockey, and I don't think that's an overreaction. But just I was going through also other issues with the arena and for the Olympics. Like the locker rooms aren't even going to be done. So apparently the locker rooms will be in trailers. Like you're going to represent your country in 2025. The Olympics is a multi-billion-dollar thing. 4 years between Olympics. It just that is you know, I simply people better be fired. You know, hockey is not everything in the Olympics. In fact, it's, outside of Canada and I guess the US and Sweden and Finland, it's probably not one of the more, is it? I mean, maybe it would be one of the more popular ones because it is a professional sport. Not that the other ones aren't professional. It's a consumer, no disrespect to the skiers out there, but I don't know who's getting up for, the ski jump, world championships, right? Like it's not a massive viewership sport, right? That's what I was trying to get across. So that's blows me away because I mean the viewership numbers alone from Canada when Team Canada plays at like is gonna that is a substantial number, a substantial number. So just wild to me, and I feel bad for the Olympic athletes. You get to go represent your country finally because it's been what 15 years? No, 2014. Yeah, because 2010 was the golden goal, so 2014. God, I would have been 24 years old. No, that was right. 20. Wait, in 2014. No, it was 2018. 2018 was when they didn't send NHLers. So yeah, it's been 10 years. Crazy. So yeah. Let's talk about the update. So yesterday, God, I went down the rabbit hole. So usually I like to stream in the morning for a couple hours, and then I take my lunch, and then I stream for 4 hours in the afternoon from 2 to about 6 p.m. And so I make my coffee and shell video. I post it, and I told you I was mentioning this yesterday that or on stream I was walking past my sanctuary out there. I got to figure out a new name for it. It's not a man cave. It's my home, and I had my Xbox One out there, just like on a thing. I don't have it plugged in. I'm like, oh, I got to go sell that. That was why I put it out there. So I was like, okay, I'll make a trip to my used game store that I've used for the last decade. I know the owner, love it there. They do great stuff, and it's just God. There's something about walking into an old game store. It's a dying industry, and if you have a bigger city, I would say like if you have a city over 100,000 people, you probably have a used game store in your city, but there's probably only one, and it's the one that outlasted everyone else. When everything went to online. Something about going into old used game stores. Anyways, so I'm like, okay, I'll get my Xbox out. I got my Xbox, and then I had a PS4 that I'm going to sell because I was thinking about it. Yeah, but what happens in the future if I want to play my old consoles? I don't know what the line is, and maybe you guys could tell me where it's worth, like, is there a PS3 game or a PS4 game that you can't get on the PlayStation Store or the Xbox Store, that you can't get on your new console because it's just, again, the graphical jump isn't that much higher, and I'd rather just get it on my new system, right? Whereas I think the for Sony at least, PlayStation 2, like, so I have a PlayStation 2. I found my PlayStation 2 and I set it up, and because that's a system of like games where you can't really access them all, and there's like it's old enough and there's nuance enough that it is different and nostalgia enough compared to having it on your console. So anyways, I take my PS4, my Wii U I had a Wii U, bunch of games for them, and I sold it all. I took it to my used game store, and I got store credit. I sold a Wii U, a PlayStation 4, an Xbox One, and a PlayStation 3. And I sold all that, made about $400 in store credit, or I could have taken like $250. Took store credit, and I finally pulled the trigger on a copy of Soul Silver. There was a copy of Soul Silver sitting there. And for anyone that is trying to collect old Pokemon games, or maybe you have old Pokemon games, though there is a choke point where if you're trying to collect all the old Pokemon, and that you kind of Heart Gold and Soul Silver is the last of like, there are so few copies out in the wild, and it has the Johto and Kanto, so you can play basically two games in one. And also to get those Pokemon, it's very difficult from other games. So it is right now out of box. It's about $160, $180. If you have one in box, you're looking at like $250. So if you have one, you want to make some money, you don't really have any interest in it. I kept holding off because I don't want to spend that much money on an old Pokemon game. I just don't like like I said, I don't like spending a ton of money. I'm getting cheaper in my old age. But since I had all the store credit, I was like, this is perfect because I've got Soul Silver, and then I'll use my remaining money when they get a copy of Heart Gold, and then I have it all. My collection of Pokemon games is complete. I can do everything that I want, where I can play every Pokemon game, transfer them up to generations with the insanely annoying process to do so, and I can get every Pokemon into the Pokemon Bank, and that was my whole end goal. That is my project that I'm working on for years, and I don't know. There's a lot of joy in doing it. I don't know. A lot of it's nostalgia anyway. So I did that, and it made me think about. So I fired up my PlayStation 2. Okay, while I was testing and making sure all my consoles still worked, I fired up my PlayStation 2, and I was like, okay, I got to go grab what games I had, and I had a copy of the great thing about PlayStation 2s is that it's backwards compatible, so you can play PlayStation 1 games. PlayStation 3. The reason why I sold mine was unless you have the original Fat Boy model, like the Spider-Man text PlayStation 3, one of the original launch ones, as well as some specific other models. They're very rare and they're very expensive now. They can backwards compatible play PlayStation 2 games. I didn't have that one. So anyways, I'm playing my PlayStation 2 and I fired up Driver. One of my core memory games. When my dad and my stepmom started dating, my stepmom has a son who's a lot older than me. My stepbrother's 41 now, so he's about 6 years older than me. But I have a core memory of he was so into like racing and like Fast and the Furious for him came out 2000. It came out when he was like 16. His first car was a Honda Civic that like he did up with, you know what I mean? Like everyone did in a teenager, but like it was peak Fast and the Furious. So he loved racing games, and he still does. He's like big into Ferrari and F1 and stuff like that. And he actually got Landon sidetracked. He got my son a drivable Ferrari for his birthday. So Landon sits in this thing in the summertime, and it's remote. I have a remote control, because he's not really old enough to understand how to drive. But when he's old enough, there's literally a gas pedal. Dude, this thing has blinkers, has Bluetooth you can play music through the speakers. It has headlights. The engine fires up when you hit the ignition. It's just unbelievable. Anyways, so I have these core memories of playing Driver with him when I was like 10 years old. And the original Driver game, it turns out, ended up being famous for the hardest, you can Google this, it is the hardest tutorial in video game history. So the opening sequence, for anyone that's ever played Driver, you basically have to pull off like a section of moves in a garage. And it was so hard to do so that people like literally couldn't do it. Remember back in the day, there was really no YouTube to like figure out how to do it. You know, you could get magazines and things like that. And dude, oh my God, I can't tell you how much money I made my parents waste on strategy guides because do you guys remember reading? Like reading, like where you were in school and you had like on Fridays you had to read for a half an hour. Oh, I immediately got my dad to buy a strategy guide of whatever video game. In fact, that's the Mass Effect Andromeda Prima strategy. I don't even know why I have that. Anyways, so that's how you would figure out how to do it in video games. But I remember that Driver. tutorial just being so difficult. I fired it up, and I have a 1080p upscaler because you got to do the red, white, and yellow, connectors, the old school ones, right? And it looked so bad, like so bad. Oh, and I don't mean just it's an old game, right? It's a PlayStation 1 game. But I'm like, I used to think this looked like real life. So it reminded me of a message a friend of mine sent me. So one of my best friends growing up, and he's probably a really big reason as to why I love video games so much. And a lot of my core memories are playing video games with him. And specifically like Metal Gear and Halo, the original Halo. He got an Xbox before I even knew what it was. And I remember sitting down and playing the Halo campaign. Anyways, God, the nostalgia, man. When you get older, you think back and you never have these memories, and when you think about them, God, it just brings you joy. Where was I going with this? Oh, he had messaged me months ago. We still talk every once in a while about video games, just things like that, and like laugh and joke about it because now we have kids and stuff, right? And he sent me this article explaining that why do older video games, when they get upscaled to 1080p or even 720, why does it look so bad? And it's actually because the old CRT TVs, those 500-pound just mammoths, okay? Those, how it worked and when games were developed, they were meant, I'm not going to explain the technical process correctly, and I'm sure there's people out there like that you guys are watching that understand this process more than I do, but essentially, they on purpose made colors bleed. So when you had a character, right, they would on purpose not make the edges of them rigid, and it would almost blur out the edge. And when you get to 1080p, and every pixel is a lot more clearer, right? There's just more pixels. It shows the bleeding, and it makes it look terrible for the most part on TVs, on newer LCD TVs. So when you play on a CRT TV, it takes advantage of the blurriness, and when you play an old game on it, it looks far better. That's why when you go and look at an old game and you're playing on a TV that's newer, you're like, this looks so bad. How did I think? It's because it literally is not meant to be played on that or viewed on that. So my Sanctuary, the next thing in 2026 is I was looking up old CRT TVs, and you can buy them on Marketplace and old ones, but there's a company that kind of makes them, and they're very expensive. But I was like, man, when I get my forever home, a room that I want to make for me and my son is kind of just a smaller version of what I've built. I want 2 chairs so that you can't have a million people in there. It's 2 chairs and the old games that I want, and it's half the size of this room. Just a small, you know what I mean? Just where you can close the door and you're just surrounded by it. And I really want a CRT TV for it in there to take advantage and play the old games, and so that my son can experience them the way that I experience them. And so I think that's what my next thing is I'm going to, save up my pennies and whatnot and try and find one of those CRT TVs that are kind of, they're not being manufactured now. I don't know if they're being manufactured now, but it's a specific company that makes them. And I really want to get my hands on one because, I didn't realize that. So all of those old games, especially the PlayStation era. So when PlayStation introduced like polygons, which was, again, lack of graphical improvement year over year now, go back to like Nintendo to the original PlayStation. Again, it looks terrible in retrospect, but the fact that you went from 2D, very little that you could do with Nintendo to the polygons and 3D art of PlayStation, that's a crazy jump, right, in innovation. So it also got me thinking about, I'm doing my Pokemon Let's Go playthrough to get all 150 of the Kanto Pokemon so that I can get them into my Pokemon home and then move on to the next thing, right, the next Pokemon game or whatever. But I've been sitting downstairs in my Sanctuary, and I'm like, man, Mass Effect keeps calling my name. Mass Effect is my second favorite game series of all time. Those games, I think, are almost perfect. The endings, and yes, there's a lot of problems in that, but the story and the premise of it, the crew you build, I love sci-fi. Just, oh God, chef's kiss, man. I pray that BioWare makes it. There is another one in development, but we've heard so little about it. And given the fact that companies just don't invest in RPG games anymore without microtransactions, I don't expect it to be a big priority. And anyways, so I was thinking about it, but Mass Effect's just calling my name, so I might do a playthrough of 1, 2, and 3, and that'll probably take me 6 months because I get like an hour or two a night now, right? And it might take me like 3 to 6 months to finish out those games. But I was like, okay, but I also want to beat Driver, Metal Gear Solid, and Dino Crisis. Those are the three that I have core memories of as a kid. There's hundreds of other games that I have core memories of, but those are the three that I've really been thinking about over the last like week or so. So I'm gonna do a playthrough of those, but I'm not gonna do it until I get my CRT TV to do it. But that's kind of the update on my Sanctuary. So for anyone that's into old gaming, look it up. Look it up. Like I didn't realize that. You would think that like newer TV, it could play, make everything older look better, but the games weren't designed for it. So want to talk about cloud computing. So I went down the rabbit hole on this last night and this morning. And I've been talking a lot about the future of games, Microsoft specifically, about how they're going to get rid of the Xbox console and go to a subscription service where you just basically, this is cloud computing. So I wanted to tie this into video games, but it's more of a broader stroke of what's going to happen in terms of technology. So I feel like we've gone through this like 3 to 5 year stretch where there isn't anything that is drastically changing the way we live our lives. AI is starting to, but AI right now, on a consumer level, is really just replacing Google. Like when I'm from a consumer standpoint, AI hasn't impacted our day-to-day lives for us normies. Okay, yes, there is unbelievable things that you can do with AI, especially from a content creator standpoint. But I'm saying that for just a normal person, Mike in Indiana, okay, the Mike in Indianas of the world, it's really just starting to replace Google. Right? Because instead of searching up a topic on Google, you're literally just asking ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT goes through all of the articles on Google and gives you the imperative information. If you're not using ChatGPT for that, you should. I would really recommend that. I know there's a lot of older people out there that don't want to get into AI because I don't need any of that. It will save you a lot of time, and it will give you the pertinent information for almost every task-related thing. I would not go to AI for therapy or things like that of that nature, but you know what I'm talking about for like, hey, how do I solve this? Use ChatGPT. So I want to talk about cloud computing because I think this is the future of how we utilize tech. So cloud computing is essentially accessing the cloud for everything. Now, you might say we already do that. iCloud has been around for 2 decades almost. And that is where you can send things. So like photos, all of that goes into the cloud, and you have your own thing that you pull out. I'm talking, you need storage space. Okay? There's no more need for hard drives. You simply just access storage online. And that's out there as well already. But again, on a consumer level, think of it like this. On any device, okay, I'm going to talk about this for video games. On any device, you don't need a console to do so. A console will make it easier, but essentially the future of cloud computing for video games would be you own a monitor, and then you access the cloud gaming software of your choice, or the cloud gaming, software, and you would not have to download it. You simply just access it. Think of Newgrounds when you were a kid, or addictedgames.com, right? Now, those games you didn't download, you just played online. Neopets, those were on a very small, the games didn't have anything to them. They were allowed to be run in a web browser. I'm talking, if you wanted to run Escape from Tarkov, it would not require a computer. That is where we're going, right? That is where cloud computing, when they develop the infrastructure for it, that is what will happen, because you'll be able to just access hardware via software. That'll be the future. That's what I truthfully believe. And again, I went down the rabbit hole of it, and it looks like that's where everything's leading. And that's probably 5 to 10 years away, maybe even faster. But I would say about 5 years from now, that's where consoles and things like that just won't be a thing. And what's funny is people might say, well, how are you going to run a game on just a monitor? It requires extensive hardware to do so. And yes, it does, but they will figure out a way to allow you to access their stuff with far less hardware, all done on the cloud. And why that would be advantageous is because A, you don't need to pay for the price of hardware, but B, they can charge a subscription and you don't own anything. That's where we're going. You don't own anything. You are simply just accessing it and you don't have to download. Now, what like people bring like, how would we do this? This is the exact same thing as what went through in the music industry. Now, music is far smaller. So let me take you back in time. 2010, let's say. Okay? I was 20 years old. Spotify becomes a thing. How many of you guys, think back, thought Spotify made no sense and would never last because why would you pay for music that you didn't own, that you just rented? Because before Spotify was iTunes, and you would buy your music and you would own your music and it would be in your iTunes library. And for anyone that said, who bought music? I used to work for Apple. Millions. There's a lot of people out there that will pay for the safety of not pirating things to know that they have the licensing and just own it, and they avoid all of the viruses and all of that stuff. Lots of people. Right now, for myself and everyone else, you just downloaded the stuff and put it on your iTunes and put it into your iTunes app on your computer, and then just put that on your phone or your iPod, right? But fast forward 15 years, I can't imagine my life without Spotify. I pay $12 or $15 or however much a month, and I would gladly do it. It makes far more sense. I don't need to go and buy every album. I just simply go and access it, right? And our cell phone, has the hardware required, where if you think about it, you had to have a separate unit. There was a reason why they had an iPod Touch and an iPhone. It was simply just space, right? Cloud computing will allow you to access things without physical hardware. And that's a crazy thing to think about, because it's like, how can you just create hard drive space out of thin air? Did you really think that you could access the entire universe from something in your pocket 30 years ago? No. It's because it wasn't dreamed, but this is where we're heading, right? Like I think this is like the iteration of our next generation of our lives, where there's just no hardware. But the downfall of that is, again, we don't own anything. But I also think this will be the golden age of gaming, our new golden age of gaming. So let me explain. At the beginning of a new technological innovation, especially when it comes to video games, everything is the cheapest it will ever be. It's also the most expensive it is, but I use this line a lot because of that message or that comment a few weeks ago or a few episodes ago, but it will be the cheapest it will ever be, right? And it will allow video game companies, when something is new, to take chances. And that just means that these billion-dollar companies will just accidentally fall into unbelievable games. There will be a few bangers, right? And then what will happen is you will slowly not own anything. You will not have physical copies. That will just be gone. And they will slowly start increasing the prices of subscriptions. Slowly and slowly and slowly. Who remembers paying like $12 a month for Netflix, right? And then we're at the mercy of those companies if we want a game, right? So Microsoft, for example, yes, they make $1 billion from making Halo, right? But they don't make anything on smaller games that they may invest money in. But now they're with a subscription model. Yes, you don't pay the $100 for Halo, but you're going to pay $20. If you want to play video games, you have to have a subscription. Over the course of 10 years, you've spent more money than buying a few games that you just grind constantly, right? That's where we're going. And that kind of is crazy to me, the fact that you won't need hardware. I can't wrap my head around that, because I don't know how stuff would run. Like I said, obviously the monitors and things that you play on, right, will have to have some sort of tech in there. But it's like you will be able to buy storage space or RAM and just be able to access it. That's so unbelievable to me. That it looks like that's might be our future for it. So, and maybe AI allows us to be able to, as a species, access and innovate things on a level that we haven't seen since the internet. Like if you think about innovation over the from 1900 to 2000, 1900 started in 1990. Right? we went from the radio to like television, and then decades before the first colored television, right? To a phone, to then like portable phones, not smartphones, portable phones. But it took decades for that. Cars themselves, right? Like it took decades for cars to innovate to the point, to see real big innovation, right? It was a lot of just figuring out how to get things and making them smaller, right? But not really getting that much better. Then the internet happened. And now you can access other people. And as a species, we can come together and be like, okay, let's fix this problem. And instead of just having your small circle of like institutions working on a problem, you now have the entire world, right? And so the internet increased our species like hundreds of years. In a decade, we saw innovation that is just absurd. And I think that this is where like our next one, when AI gets figured out, because over the last like 5 to 10 years, if you were to go back 10 years ago, what don't we have that we have now? You know what I mean? Like much more crude things, but not, but we still had access. Like we had a smartphone 15 years ago, 10 years ago. We had a smartphone, right? We still have video games, all that stuff. We still have that now. It's just in better, prettier packages that run faster, right? You know what I mean? VR, I think, would become a thing. Consumer VR just did not take off the way that I thought it would. And it will get to a point where I think when cloud gaming becomes a thing, I think VR, that is when you see VR explode. Because if you can access any game from a VR device and play it, and again, the hardware capabilities are purchased via the cloud and not hardware inside the unit, that'll be crazy. So, anyways, that was a really long rant there. But let's get to some questions, and we'll go over some of the most liked comments from yesterday. Sleeves, you talk about ranked. You talk about problems with ranked and how the fact that you hit a plateau and then don't get any more rewards, and that it's frustrating. And while I totally agree, if the fix is adding some ways to get rewards while stuck in a division, but still being able to grind up the ranks and get rewarded from that, do you not just want rivals back? Are the other ways you think they could do this without being another classic EA move, removing something, then adding it back 3 years later? I said this after the launch of the game. So I said that a way to fix the current rival reward or ranked issue is to add a rival's objective path. I also said that is the most boring and least fun thing that they could do, but it is the only way that we would be able to do so. Like without them coming up with some new thing that they have to code and get in the game that I know that they're never going to be able to do in the middle of a cycle. I don't want that. I just think that is the quickest fix to get what we want, which is more rewards in ranked. I don't want rivals back, but I think that online competitive player playing against someone else is a simple thing. It is, you can't reinvent the wheel on that. Okay, so what I mean by that is you're playing 1v1. We have had versus for 20 years. Okay? It really isn't any different. The only thing different in Hockey Ultimate Team is that you build your own team. That's it. Right? Like, so it's very... The only thing that you can adjust is, whether it's lineup restrictions or rewards, right? And how you apply them. So rivals and ranked is the same thing. It's the same thing. They can call it something else. That's fine, right? But it is the same thing. What I would do, given the current tech and what they have, is I simply would have just created a second ranked path where every win, you got a square. If you lost, you did not go down. The current one that is in the game allows players that are at the top end to get double the rewards. So as you get better at the game and you get higher up, you are earning that reward again, right? This would fix all problems, not all of them, but that would fix a ton of them. I think that would be. I don't want rivals back in, and you mentioned the classic move of them removing things and putting back in. Yeah, it's funny how much that happens. Hey, Sleeves, you should do a fun challenge for yourself or your followers. I remember a few videos ago, someone mentioned that you couldn't reach Plat with a Sharks theme team. This would be a cool challenge to take on. You should set a time frame after building a full Sharks theme team, let's say 2 weeks or whatever. I don't know how you could be rewarded for making Plat in that time other than bragging rights. However, if you don't reach your goal in that time frame, you have to buy a pack from the store with real money. Up for the challenge? If so, good luck, my friend. Self-inflicted challenges in this game is one of the best ways to have fun. If you are addicted to the game, you're frustrated with it, you don't find yourself enjoying it, you're very angry with it, you're bored of the content, all of that, a self-inflicted challenge is awesome. So on a grander scale, I used to spend money in the game, and I would do so with the thought process of I'm going to have the best team so everyone can see the best cards before they, that was kind of my way to go about it, right? So I would test out the cards, and if, I would have the best team. So boring. I also really hated spending that much money, and I hated that I was doing the thing that I did not support, and that's spending money in Ultimate Team games, right? Then I went to no money spent. And in my first year of no money spent, I had 2 accounts. And what ended up happening was around January, right after Team of the Year, I had this God Squad, every Team of the Year card, unbelievable. But I was so bored because new cards came out. They wouldn't even make my lineup. So it's like, whatever, I don't care. And then I started playing my no money spent team more. And then it got to the point where I only wanted to play on my no money spent team because there was a challenge. It was like, can I do as good as I did with not spending any money? So the Sharks theme team is just a progression of that. I don't want to build an all-time Sharks theme team. I want to watch the sport. I did this in MLB 2 years ago when I fell back in love with baseball, obsessed with it. What I was doing in MLB The Show was I was using the current Red Sox lineup. And I don't know why I had so much more fun with it. Obviously, I was at a disadvantage. MLB The Show does a really good job, though, because they have the parallel system. So I was using base Jarren Duran, my favorite Red Sox player. The base Jarren Duran card, I use it so much, gained enough XP, that I would get to parallel 5, meaning all of his attributes go up +5. And this happens for every card. So I had an entire lineup of, like, base Red Sox. And then, obviously, there's, like, a jacked up Tristan Costas card. So it'd be like, for the Sharks, right? I have to use base Toffoli, right? But I have Master Set, Macklin, Celebrini, Eklund, Will Smith, etc., right? And that's where I would find the fun. And I would be curious if I used that team and I didn't care about line combos. And if it fell into line combos, sure, but I'm having players play with their actual line mates because I'm watching all of the Sharks games again. My sanctuary allows me to sit in a space that is not my bedroom, or, I've been watching Shark games. I've been staying up to 1 a.m., which I don't know how much longer I can keep up with, but even still, I can watch it in the morning on my treadmill and stuff. That was the whole point, right? And I'm like, man, I'm starting to like Kurashev a little bit more. And I'm like, man, it'd be kind of cool to put Kurashev with like Eklund and, Wenberg. I don't know. I think that's what I'll do. And I'm curious. I bet you I could get platinum, which is what I got to last season. I don't know what my peak is, though, in this new format. I think I could get to diamond if I'd have to switch my wingers back to the right side. I forgot that I play strong side wingers again. I think I can definitely get to platinum, which is what I got to last season, with my strong side winger setup. I don't know if I get to diamond. Diamond is Division 1. So I don't know if I have the thumb skill to do that anymore. But I bet you I could get to platinum with a Sharks theme team. God, that's a fun test. I'm having the most fun I've ever had in Hut this year, for all the same reasons you keep mentioning. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse reiterating them, but to rebut another comment, the meta has always been and will always be the meta. The fact that cards outside the meta are actually feasible due to line combos allows for more lineup flexibility. Just because people aren't taking advantage of it doesn't make it less true. 100% in agreement. Yes, we end up with a lot of the same lineups at the top end of the game for the people that are just so hard stuck into not using cards that they actually watch in real life. And they need the best cards because, and I understand that because I chase it and I can understand it. Having the best team and the best meta allows me to do a little bit better. And in a game where you need all the advantages you can get, I understand it, okay? It will still help you. But it's not as fun. I spent money last year versus none this year. With the lack of rewards, I've been able to keep up with the meta cards. Saying this year is any more chores than any other is, like you said, revisionist history. Cup chase is at least a bit different than grinding out your 30 squad battles each week. Guys, Hut is so much better from a structural standpoint. The rewards issue and monetization issue is a game industry, is an EA Sports problem across the board, and it will only get worse. But from the studs, go back and look at the last 5 years of how we played Hut. Yes, we got more rewards, but good Lord, was there nothing. It was the exact same game. And at least now with line combos, it makes you think a little bit more. So that's where I will say it's far better. All that to say, I've been having a blast this year. Are things perfect? No. But scoring is better than ever. 100% agree. Line combos are overall an improvement so far. I agree. Should we be critical about a product we spend so much money on? Of course. I appreciate the content. At the very least, it's documentation to all people bitching about how last year was so much better. I mean, dude, I'm in 100% agreement here with that, and I'm with you. So, okay, guys, I hope you have a great Thursday. I'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully, I win at cornhole tonight. I have my competitive cornhole team. I was not able to go the last 3 weeks because I was in the hospital on my deathbed. So, hope to see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy the episode. Have a good one.